What is up, bros and broettes? I am Inkslasher, and welcome to Evolution, a series where we look at the history of Call of Duty. Today, we're going to be looking at the evolution of gun game. And before we get into the video, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for all the support in the last one of these videos. That you made it very clear that you wanted to see more of these, and the top-rated comment was that you wanted to see the evolution of gun game. So let me know down in the comment section below what you would like to see in the next video, whether it be a game mode, whether it be a specific attachment, or anything. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. The last one of these videos got over 5,000 likes, and it would be absolutely insane if we could do that again. But all I ask is if you do enjoy the video and you do enjoy the content, if you could hit that like button, it'd be very greatly appreciated, as these videos by far take the most amount of time to edit and put together compared to my other videos. So that would be amazing, but without further ado, let's look at the evolution of gun game. Gun game is a game mode where after every single kill you progress to a new weapon. In most games, you start off with a pistol and progress to better and better weapons until you get to the best weapon, and then those weapons deteriorate, switching to snipers, switching to rocket launchers, and finally some sort of melee weapon that you have to finish the game with. Now, by no means did Call of Duty invent gun game. Gun game has been around in many first-person shooters. The first time I personally ever played it was in Counter-Strike Source when I was in middle school. This was a long time ago, far before Call of Duty adapted it. But the first time Call of Duty ever introduced gun game was in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. However, in Black Ops 1, gun game wasn't just another game mode. It wasn't a party game or another playlist. What it was something called a wager match. You see, in Black Ops 1, throughout playing the game, you accumulated COD points. Yes, you didn't hear me wrong. COD points were a thing back in Black Ops 1. However, they were never a thing that you could actually purchase. With these COD points, you would earn them simply by playing, and that's what you'd use to unlock your weapons, attachments, and pretty much anything you'd want to use throughout the game. However, what you could do is then go into wager matches and gamble your COD points. And what you do with this is you play in specific game modes, whether that be gun game, one in the chamber, sharpshooter. There was various game modes, and you could bet them, and the top 3 players actually won more COD points, whereas the rest of the players in the lobby, the bottom 3 players, would lose their COD points. Now, there were 3 different playlists for wager matches. Ante-Up, which was betting 10 COD points, Weekend Gambler, which was betting 1,000 COD points, and finally High Roller, which was betting 10,000 COD points, in which you didn't know exactly what game mode you were playing until you actually voted on a game mode in the pre-game lobby. As far as the weapon rotation went in Black Ops 1, it never changed. Every single game of gun game you played, you would have the exact same weapon rotation. You'd start with the Python with speed reloader and end with the ballistic knife in every single game you played. You can see the full weapon rotation here on screen. I'm not going to read them all out, but a couple of the interesting ones is the Makarov dual weld used to be the ASP's dual weld, and the Grim Reaper, which is actually a kill streak in Black Ops 1, used to be the RPG. These were the only changes they made throughout the entirety of Black Ops 1. 2 of the best features, in my opinion, in gun game in Black Ops 1 were 2 things that never actually returned to a Call of Duty game ever. The first of which was the maps that you played on were actually limited in size. They would put up walls in certain areas and make the maps smaller to speed up the games of gun game. This was never recreated in another Call of Duty game. As you can see here, I'm playing on WMD, and that wall beside me is normally open, but in this game it's closed to make the map smaller. Another thing that they did was on the mini-map, the first place person in the lobby would be highlighted as an orange dot instead of the normal red dot. This was important because by knowing what person was in first place, you could set back that person, because don't forget, when playing gun game, if you get knifed, you have to go back to the previous weapon. The final thing that we're going to look at for every single Call of Duty game is the last 2 weapons that you used. In Black Ops, they were the crossbow and the ballistic knife. The notable thing about these 2 weapons in this game is both of them had a pretty damn long reload speed, and of course, you could only shoot either 1 bolt or 1 knife at a time. This made it a little bit more difficult to actually finish the game. The other thing was, with the ballistic knife, you were running around with a knife out, so a lot of people would get to the ballistic knife and just run around knifing people, setting them back, making it more difficult for them to progress in the game. After Black Ops 1, when Modern Warfare 3 came out, gun game was never actually a playable game mode in multiplayer. The only way you were able to play gun game was in custom matches, and the interesting thing about this is Modern Warfare 3 was one of the games to have the most playlists out of any Call of Duty game ever to be released. released. The interesting thing, Gun Game was never one of these playlists, even though they had a party games section within their playlists. In Black Ops 2, Gun Game was no longer a wager match. It's what Treyarch called a party game mode. And the interesting thing about this one is a lot of things were removed from the original Gun Game that Treyarch had in Black Ops 1. Once again, maps were regular size. They didn't limit the size for less players. On top of that, there was no longer that gold icon on the first place person in the menu. However, one thing that did stay the same is that it had a set rotation of weapons. So a couple of important things to note about this weapon rotation is, once again, you start off with pistols and end with the crossbow and ballistic knife. The other thing is, once again, there is a total of 20 weapons that you have to go through. The one main difference in Black Ops 2, however, is that most of the weapons you're going to be using are also going to have an attachment. For example, the pistol that you start with a tactical knife. This was especially annoying in this game because with a tactical knife you have a faster knifing motion, which meant a lot of players were going to run around simply knifing people, setting them back and causing a lot of grief in Black Ops 2. And of course, the other weapons you use also have different attachments as well. As you can see, the Executioner has the laser sight, the MSMC has grip, so on and so forth. That was one major change they made in Black Ops 2. And as I mentioned earlier, the final 2 kills of the game are once again received with the crossbow and the ballistic knife. One major difference in Black Ops 2 compared to Black Ops 1, however, is the crossbow reloaded much faster in Black Ops 2 than Black Ops 1. This caused your second last kill to be received a little bit easier than it was in Black Ops 1. Then came along Call of Duty Ghost, and in Call of Duty Ghost, Gun Game was not a party game mode. It was in the standard playlist, and the one major thing that they changed in Call of Duty Ghost is for the vast majority of the game, it was randomized. And what I mean by this is, not only when we look at the weapon rotation are almost every single one of these weapons completely random with a random attachment, but on top of that, the order was no longer the same as it was in Black Ops 1. For example, in Black Ops 1, normally you'd start off with a handgun, then a handgun, and then a shotgun, 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 SMG, SMG, assault rifle, assault rifle. If we look at Call of Duty Ghost, we have handgun, shotgun, SMG, assault rifle as the first 4 weapons. Then later on, you switch back to assault rifle. There's no logical progression in Call of Duty Ghost, whereas the older Black Ops game, there was a logical progression to how you progressed through the weapons. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, though, because with this, it made every single game a little bit more interesting and every single game a little bit different. The only other thing that's different with this one is, instead of having 20 total weapons you go through, in Call of Duty Ghost, you only have 18. As far as the final 2 kills of the game go, you had the 44 Magnums akimboed and the combat knife with a throwing knife. The 44 Magnums akimboed were much easier to get a kill with than the crossbow in previous Call of Duty games. The throwing knife was very similar to the ballistic knife. Because of this, it all came down to that last kill, who could get that throwing knife kill first. And then came Advanced Warfare, Sledgehammer's first solo addition to the Call of Duty franchise. And in this, it was released with no gun game. No gun game whatsoever until February 13th, which is about 4 months into the game's life cycle, which isn't too far, but still, it's still surprising that it wasn't released with that. And in this, it released with a very interesting set of rules. First of all, the first thing you may notice about this set of weapons is there is 25. No longer is there 20 or 18, they went all the way up to 25 kills with different weapons to use. The next thing you may notice is you do not start out with a pistol. You start out with the ASM-1, arguably the best weapon in the game. The third thing you may notice, you don't finish with a throwing knife or ballistic knife, you finish with a crossbow. The point I'm getting at is the progression of weapons in this game was a little bit nonsensical and different for a gun game. No longer did you start out with a pistol, and no longer did you end with a throwing knife or ballistic knife. Another thing you may have noticed is that the 12th weapon in the rotation is the M1 Irons, a weapon that didn't come out till later in the game's life cycle. Before that weapon came out, you used the MK14. Another really big part of Advanced Warfare was weapon variants. It was the game that introduced them, and originally when Gun Game came out, weapon variants were not involved whatsoever. Later on, they changed it so that every single game of Gun Game you played, you'd have a random set of variants, but it would be the same for every single person inside that lobby. But by far, if you ask me, the weirdest thing about this Gun Game is that it didn't end with a throwing knife. It didn't end with a ballistic knife. It ended with a rocket launcher and then a crossbow. crossbow, which is a lot easier than landing a crossbow and then a ballistic knife. The next game is Black Ops 3, and to me, Black Ops 3's gun game is almost perfect. There is one thing wrong with Black Ops 3's gun game, and we'll get there. But if we go ahead and look at the rotation of Black Ops 3's gun game, we once again go back to the 20 weapons. So far, every single Treyarch game has always had 20 weapons in the rotation for their gun games. And as you may have noticed, it once again goes back to the normal rotation of gun games, starting off with pistols, then shotguns, SMGs, assault rifles, so on and so forth. Another thing to note is that every single game of gun game you play in Black Ops 3 has the exact same rotation. There's nothing random. No random weapons, no random attachments. The one thing I don't like is the way it ends. It ends with a combat knife and then using your fists. So basically one melee attack kill and then a double melee attack kill because your fists have to land twice. I personally prefer the game ending with a crossbow and a ballistic knife. It's just what I prefer. It makes it flow a little bit better if you ask me. Speaking of which, later on in Black Ops 3's life cycle, they then released something called Blackjack's gun game, which is basically a game of gun game with all of the DLC weapons from Black Ops 3. And it ends with the NX Shadowclaw, which is basically a crossbow, and the ballistic knife. And to me, this is much better than it ending with a knife and your fists. The only other thing, and I forgot to mention this about Black Ops 2, is that in Black Ops 3, during the gun game, you have a constant sweeping UAV. The only two games to actually do that are Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 2. And then we have Infinite Warfare. Infinite Warfare is pretty much identical to that of Call of Duty Ghosts. And what I mean by that is if we look at the weapon rotations, once again, we drop down to 18 total weapons. On top of that, every single one of the weapons is once again random, except for the final two. The Kendall 44 and the combat knife with a biospike this time. And let's be honest, the biospike is just identical to that of a throwing knife. The other thing that you may have noticed is that once again, it no longer goes handgun, handgun, handgun. It goes handgun, shotgun, SMG, just like it did in Call of Duty Ghosts. Another thing to mention about Infinite Warfare is yes, there is weapon variants. However, the only time you actually use them in gun game is if they have Epic Gun Game active. This is a game mode they have once in a while on weekends, and every single one of the weapons you will use in the rotation will be an epic version of it. And as far as the ending goes on this one, you end with the Kendall 44 and then the biospike. I think it's better than ending it with fists, but I would still prefer a ballistic knife. Unfortunately, there is no such thing in Infinite Warfare. And last but definitely not least, we have Modern Warfare Remastered. Modern Warfare Remastered wasn't originally released with gun game because, well, in Call of Duty 4, there was no gun game. However, on December 13th, they added it in, and it's a really weird version of it. First of all, you may notice there is a total of 28 different weapons. On top of that, it's a little bit weird to play because, for example, when you use a sniper rifle, let's say you're using the R700. In gun game, you're not using stopping power, which means, for the most part, you're going to have to land 2 bullets unless you get pretty much a headshot, which makes it flow very odd. And finally, in Modern Warfare Remastered, there is no crossbow and there is no ballistic knife. So the way gun game ends is with the RPG and the Gravedigger. That's right, a shovel. I'm not sure why they decided that, but literally every single round of gun game ends with that. But guys, that is the evolution of gun game. Overall, I think I have to say my favorite gun game goes out to Black Ops 2, simply because it still ends with that ballistic knife, and for some reason that just feels right to me. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Which variant of gun game is your personal favorite? Let me know. Also, if you enjoyed the video, it would be very greatly appreciated if you could hit that like button, as these videos do take a very long time to put together and edit, and it would be very much appreciated. Also, if you enjoyed the video and like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button as I upload new Call of Duty videos every single day of the week, and let me know down in the comments below what you would like to see in future versions of the Evolution series. But guys, hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for